It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Colby's head women's soccer coach, Coach Tracey Leone. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college women's soccer?
How I got started?
hmm
Well, I was on the heels of playing, so I was ending my career just playing on the U.S. Women's National Team, and had graduated college and was a part of trying to make that team, which is kind of, every camp you're trying to perform so that you get invited back into the next one. And it was graduation, and I was like, what am I going to be doing? And so I got into teaching, which was what my degree is in, and got into just coaching club soccer and doing private, soccer sessions with young girls, and had coached Carolina camps all through my college career. So I thought I would be in coaching in some way, but little did I know it would become a livelihood for me, because it really wasn't common back then for that to happen. So I, substitute taught, I coached on the side. And then my husband asked if I would be interested in helping him at Creighton University. This was before we were married. And he said, you can train for the World Cup, then you can help me. And I was like, perfect, this is great. And so, I went there and did that and went on to the World Cup and ended up staying in coaching from that point forward. So I luckily kind of fell into it. Like I said, I thought I would be involved in soccer forever and thought I would be involved in coaching, but I did not expect it to be a livelihood for me, just because, like I said, it just wasn't that common, back then in the late 80s, to have that, opportunity in particular for females.
What was your experience like getting to go to college at UNC and getting to compete in collegiate soccer for Carolina?
Greatest experience of my life. I mean, to have the opportunity to play for Anson Dorrance and to learn from him, there's just nobody like him in the whole world. And so I truly felt like the luckiest person in the whole world. I actually, at that point, had been the player that had played for him, ironically, the longest. So I played with him, or played for him in high school on the regional team through the ODP program. And then I went on to play for him in college, and then I played for him post college a couple years on the national team. So strangely, I played for him a lot longer, which, that was the blessing for me, to be able to get to know him and to be coached by him. So it really was, I just was the luckiest person in the world, I felt, to be able to go to North Carolina, to go to a school that's so amazing, and to play for, the best coach in the world. I mean, who wouldn't love that, right? So I loved every minute of it.
What was that feeling like getting to represent the North Carolina Tar Heels and putting on that block in and representing the Carolina Blue?
It was an honor. There's a storied tradition, and such a rich history there. And actually, when I came in '85, the class before me that had graduated had won 4 straight national championships. So you knew, wow, this is something really special. Even way back then, when there weren't that many teams, and women's soccer wasn't, on the forefront of the culture in the US like it is now. And so, but it didn't matter. I mean, it just was like every single day, when you put on that practice gear that had North Carolina on it, or certainly when you played games, you knew what that meant, and you knew the responsibility that you had. But you also felt the honor that, representing North Carolina really had. And so, again, felt like the luckiest person in the world to go there and to play for him.
During your time at Carolina, what were some of your biggest accomplishments as a player?
Our team, my freshman year, we got to the national championship and actually lost, which was very difficult, actually. You felt really responsible, because we were kind of the class that came in as freshmen, try and carry out this tradition. And we ended up losing in the national championship to a George Mason team that was an amazing team, and really that played better on the day than we did. So they certainly deserved to win the game. Um, Obviously, that kind of fueled our motivation, and we went on to win 3 straight after that, which really just was fortunate to be a part of that, and was, really blessed to be a 3-time All-American. And really during my college career was when I got the invite to come in with the U.S. women's national team. And so, I just, like I said, felt so lucky to be in that environment, and knew that it would help me grow as a player to really my maximum level. I was going to be as good as I could get being in that environment. So I was happy to have that opportunity.
Of course, during your time at Carolina, did you also get to play with Mia Hands? And what was that experience like if you did?
I actually did. And the irony is, and this really is my actual claim to fame, is that I was her roommate her first semester. So that's really my claim to fame, is that Mia Hamm was my roommate and the first semester. So I actually knew Mia. I had met Mia when she came in with the North Texas State team. Um, Gosh, it was probably a couple years before she ended up coming to college, before she was even on the national team. And John Casaboon was the coach, and I adored him as well. And he said, "Hey, we have this young player coming in. She's amazing. And will you be her roommate? Will you help her? Because she's very, very young." And of course, we're all in college. And so I said, "Sure." And she comes in and she's my roommate. And of course, I got to know her well and really, really loved her. And the first game, about 10 minutes into the game, she hits a shot that goes in the upper 90. And all of us were like looking at each other like, okay, this player is special. And so I actually got to know her during that experience. That's when I first met her, and then through the national team, before she went to college. So, when I was going my extra semester because I got injured, so I redshirted a year and went 4.5 years. And that's when Anson came to me and said, "Hey, I know you've got semester, I'm looking for a roommate for Mia, who graduated early. Would you like to room with Mia?" And I said, "Yeah, I would love it." And my roommates were graduating, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I would love to live with Mia." So we lived that fall, her first fall, my last fall, together. And so that was amazing. And I had known her from the national team, and so it was wonderful. She became such a great friend, and of course, was an amazing player as well. But it was fun for me to get to know her, just so closely on a personal level, to just find out just what an amazing human being she is.
Of course, what was that experience like for you being a part of that Carolina team and having so many people that have went on to the national team and knowing them before they went famous?
Yeah, I mean, at that point in time, in the late 80s, it was, a lot of players that were playing, at the highest level came from that program. Now you have players coming from everywhere, including North Carolina, of course, but you have players coming from all over the country, and it's just grown exponentially. And so, yeah, I mean, when you go to North Carolina, you know what you're kind of what you're getting into, the tradition, the expectations, that you're going to be pushed to your maximum as a player and as a human being. And really that's what I was seeking coming out. I just loved soccer. I loved playing for Anson, and before I went to college, and once I visited, it was kind of all over. I knew that's where I really wanted to be.
What was that feeling like for you to make that national team to represent US?
Oh, it was, again, the greatest honor that I've had in my life, next to becoming a mom. It just, you put all this work in at the time when we were playing. There had just become a national team. I think it just started in like maybe 1984, 1985, and so we just hadn't had a team that long. This was ages ago, at the inception of the program. And so there was no World Cup on the horizon. Women's soccer wasn't an Olympic sport. And so you just knew, um, I'm just playing because I want to represent my country and the sport that I love. And that was enough. It wasn't about, money. It wasn't about, um, you know, what do you call that when you sign with companies? The name is escaping me. Like Reebok or Nike or whatever. It wasn't about anything other than the absolute purity of representing your country. We were paid $10 a day to cover our expenses, and that was it. And so what I loved about that was it was only about representing your country. There were no, other motivators. There were no other ulterior motives. It was all about representing the United States. So when you have that chance to put on the red, white, and blue and the U.S. Soccer crest, you know what that means, and it's one of the most special things that you can do. And so I truly felt that through every bone in my body, for sure.
How was that experience like being part of one of those first few national teams to represent US?
It was amazing. I mean, I don't think when you're playing, you don't expect, and you don't know what's going to happen afterwards. You don't expect actually what actually happened, you know, what is it, 30 years later, 30 plus years later. You don't know where the game's going to go. And so to see it where it is now is like, wow. I mean, you just can't believe the growth, and to be a part of that at the beginning and to feel, like a pioneer of all of it is really quite special. And I wouldn't have traded it for the entire world. Playing at that time, at the very beginning in the first Women's World Cup, like I would not have traded. And if someone said, "Hey, if you could have played later in 1999, and if you would have been good enough to make that team," which by the way, I would not have been good enough to make it, but if you would have been good enough to make it, would you want to trade that? And I would say no, I absolutely would not. I loved playing when we did. It was the start of something. It was the beginning of building something. And I thought that's what made it so incredible. And I can remember Anson talking to the team, and he's saying, it was like 3 months before the World Cup, and he was talking about what we're about to embark on and how few people have the opportunity to be the best in the world at something. And that's anything from sports to professions, to, the music industry, whatever it might be, how few people have the opportunity to be the best in the world at whatever they do, and that we had that opportunity. And it really kind of hit me like what we were about to embark on, because it was the first time. So none of us knew what we were getting into. And what he said as well is like, the first is something that's very special. You will always be at the top of the list, and that will never change when you're the first at something. And so I just would never have traded the time that we did that. The journey was not, it wasn't glamorous all the time. We stayed in some, tough situations. We had hotels that were flooding and electricity that was going out, and eating different types of foods all around the world that were challenging for us to get the nutrition we needed and to adapt to that. But having said all those things, that's what actually made it great. Like all those funny stories and all those challenges made us a better team and made the experience all that much more special. And so again, I just felt like such an honor whenever you can represent your country, but to do it at the beginning was truly, truly special.
Of course, during that time representing the US and being a soccer player, what was that like also being a college coach and going to Creighton to become the assistant coach?
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning I did them simultaneously, but really only for about 3 months. So I was lucky. I was able to go back to Creighton after I was done with the World Cup. And I knew pretty much after the World Cup that even though I was only 26 years old, so I was young, um, that it was probably going to be time for me to retire from international soccer, because it was just going to be hard for me to continue to make the team. I knew I was one of the latter players in 1991 to make the team, and just felt so fortunate that that opportunity was bestowed on me. So even though I didn't really want to retire as a young player, I knew that it was time to retire because there were going to be better players, coming up that were more suited to be on the team than I was. So that's when I kind of started coaching. So I was really lucky. It was pretty seamless transition from playing into coaching. And luckily I was still young enough to hop in and play with the team all the time, which kind of filled that void for me in the transition from, playing to coaching. So I loved doing that with Creighton and then on with Clemson and the other teams that we coached.
What was that experience like being the assistant coach at Creighton?
It was amazing. I mean, I learned so much as a coach. It was my first, kind of job in coaching other than working at the Carolina soccer camps and the summer soccer camps and the Bobby Moffett summer soccer camps. So I worked camps all through the summer and really enjoyed coaching in those environments as a young, college student. So to have the opportunity to jump into college and, you know, right on the heels of kind of graduating and after, about a year of teaching and coaching on my own in Dallas was really neat. And it was a great training environment for me as well to be able to continue to train for the national team while I was jumping into coaching. And I think Ray thought this will be great. Tracey will bring something different. I need help. I need an assistant. And she can play in. And that's a way that you can coach the players is actually by example and, trying to teach them by playing in and teach them about standards and intensity and competitiveness and other things. And so I really loved that team at Creighton, and they'll always hold a special place in my heart because that was my first coaching experience in college, and they were amazing. They were so receptive, and I just felt really lucky that that was a group I was able to be a part of.
How was that feeling like for you going to Clemson and becoming the first head coach there?
Yeah, it was overwhelming. Again, I was I think 26 when I accepted that position, and um, they took a chance on me big time because I was not a proven coach. It was a time of gender equity, and so that's partly why Clemson and many schools were beginning women's soccer programs was because of gender equity. So I was kind of a benefactor of that. And luckily Ray was with me. And so the combination of Ray and myself offered a unique blend of, kind of international playing experience. I played for Anson, which is the best coach in the world. So I was bringing, some of his ideas. And Ray actually had the experience that I didn't have. And so Clemson, I think, had the vision to hire us as a team. And even what I lacked, Ray had. And so I was lucky with that because I was learning, kind of, by the fire as a young coach jumping into a program in the ACC. And not only that, like building it from scratch and not having any players to begin with. So, but it was an amazing experience. We had the most incredible boss, Dwight Rainey. He was just an incredible boss. He helped me so much as a young coach. The women's soccer program was like his baby. And it was awesome to build the program from scratch because you got to make every decision, good or bad, which we made both. But, we got to make every decision involved in the program. So it was really incredible to build a program at a place like Clemson that had the foresight to, start a year in advance, let you have a year to put the team together. And because of that, we were able to reap the rewards and have success, instantly, which was, really a big credit to Clemson and how they, began the program in really the right way.
While at Clemson, what was it like getting to coach in the ACC and coaching against your alma mater of Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. The ACC at that time and arguably still is today, the best conference. It was the best conference in the nation. Obviously, Carolina had, was still and still is today having enormous success. And we actually played North Carolina the first game at Clemson. The first game of our history was against University of North Carolina, actually, at their place. And we knew it was going to be a learning experience. We weren't going into the game concentrating on the result. We were concentrating on the experience and what playing North Carolina, the standard and the measurement of absolute success was going to do for our team. And that game was worth 20 games, really, in terms of how much our team learned and grew just from playing North Carolina. So it was always fun. I really loved playing against North Carolina because, Anson is so amazing. And I think he gets a kick out of playing against his former players. And I think he gets a lot of joy from that and he should. It's such a testament to him because a lot of us are in coaching because of, his influence, and our experience at North Carolina was so wonderful that, it kind of keeps you in the game. And so it's a real testament to him and how amazing he is that he has so many former players that are still coaching and involved in the games in some way.
While at Clemson, what was it like getting to go to the Sweet 16 and the NCAA tournament?
Well, it was phenomenal. I remember the first year we thought we were going to get in, but we didn't know. And it was on this random station that I don't even know. It was like you had to I don't know, put two steel antennas together to get. It wasn't even like a common station that the selection show was on. And so we went to our sports information director's house to watch it because for some reason he had the channel. And I remember us sitting there waiting and hoping and waiting and hoping, and Clemson coming up on the screen, and it had a star next to it, which meant we were actually even going to host a game. And I remember the players, we were going bananas, and a player was like pointing at the screen, like we couldn't even hear the guy talking because we were all like celebrating. And a player was pointing at the screen, with the star saying, we're actually going to host a game. So it truly was an incredible feeling because when you've played and you've been able to experience, maybe winning national championships or winning a world championship, when you get into coaching, you want your players to experience something like that. You want them to experience, successes and joys and celebrations like that. And so I will never forget that day. And, just the pure joy, watching the players, like sitting back and watching them and seeing their faces. It was worth all the hard work for sure. So it was incredible to be able to go to the national tournament as a young program and to really fight to continue to do that and build a storied tradition at Clemson.
Of course, as a coach, what was that like going to the national tournament versus your time as a player when you were at Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was similar, it's similar. They are different experiences, where as a player, obviously you have this different role. And as a coach, you have this different role. But for me, it brought really the kind of the same joy, and you felt the same. I felt the same going into games, so it was equally as special and as joyous and celebratory being a coach as it was a player.
How is it like getting to go to Harvard and getting to coach in the Ivy League?
It was a great experience. I hadn't had much interaction with the Ivy Leagues. When I played, we didn't play against any Ivy League teams. Ironically, I was in the recruiting process recruited by Harvard. But this coach was like, you're going to have to get your SAT up. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen. So that was my only interaction with the Ivy Leagues. And so, to have the opportunity to go to Harvard, and before we made the decision to go, Ray and I were like, it's Harvard. Like, I mean, it's Harvard. That's all you have to say. And so we were like, we have to really, if we are really lucky enough to get this opportunity, we have to pursue it. We have to do it. And so it was amazing to be at a place like Harvard, to coach those players, which, everyone would ask, like, oh, are they different? And I'm like, they're not any different than any players that we ever coached anywhere. They just are extraordinary in the classroom as well, but they're normal people, they have the same things going on in their life as everybody else. They just happen to excel, academically in a special way. So it was an incredible experience. I had, instant respect for the Ivy League. I mean, the minute you play games in that league, you realize that these players have this extraordinary commitment level in everything that they do, including soccer. And so those games were as intensive as any games that I had been a part of in the ACC or even in the Pac-12, or at the time the Pac-10 at Arizona State. So it was wonderful experience to be at Harvard, and to coach at a place like Harvard and to coach those players was really, really amazing.
Of course, how was that experience like getting to coach the developmental national team? Of course, using your experience as a player.
I mean, I loved it. I always felt like with the under 19 national team that I had a kind of a dual purpose. One was to develop the team, and at the time there was going to be a world championship, so to get ready for the world championships and hopefully be successful there. But the second part of that was to get them ready to try and climb the ladder to make the women's national team one day. And I really loved that because I feel like you can draw on your experience as a player, having represented the country, and you're trying to teach them what that means and what an honor that is and how special that is, and also the responsibility that comes with it, that you have to take seriously and that you have to make a commitment towards. So I loved coaching that team. It was ironically very similar to our 91 team. And there were in Canada at the World Championships, they were making correlations between the 1991 team that I had played on and the 2002 team I was coaching in the first U19 World Championship. So there were a lot of parallels with it being the first time. And we had these three amazing forwards on that team: Lindsay Tarpley, Heather O'Reilly, both of which played for the women's national team and had great careers there. And then Kelly Wilson, who was also involved on the women's side. And of course, in 91, we had April Heinrichs, Michelle Akers, and at the time, Karen Jennings, who now is Karen Gabarra. So there were so many parallels with the teams. And it was really neat, to experience that and to kind of go back as a player, because there were so many comparisons, and to now currently be coaching that team. So it was truly special. And I felt really lucky to be a part of their careers at that time, and to have the opportunity to teach them what it means to represent the United States.
Going to Northeastern, what was that experience like being their head coach?
It was wonderful. I mean, Ray and I have been really lucky to love everywhere that we've been. When we accepted the Clemson job, I thought we would retire in Clemson and we would be buried right there on the Clemson campus. I felt like we would be there forever because we just loved it so much. And, the game afforded us different opportunities and sometimes different places, and whether it be an opportunity for him or an opportunity for me. And so we would have never guessed that we would have traveled around coaching in all these different places. But really, Northeastern was, again, a wonderful opportunity for me. I had two incredible bosses that just I loved working for. And there was so much potential in that program. I walked into a very good team, so that I was really lucky to have. And so it was a wonderful experience. And it was also great to coach in a different league and to learn the CAA. And I love that league as well. I mean, what you find is all these leagues are really great and really, an honor to be a part of.
What was that transition like for you from coaching college to then going to New Zealand and coaching their national team?
Yeah, I mean, Jika Klimkova was hired as the New Zealand women's national team coach, and she is absolutely phenomenal. And so when she asked me to help out and be one of their assistants for a few events, I knew it was going to be an incredible learning environment for me. And so it was amazing. And, the players were so fun to be around. It was amazing to be back at that level and to see the progress, because from, 91, then I was involved with the youth in 2002. I hadn't been involved at the international level since those two times. And that was, 20 plus years before going with New Zealand. So to see the game and how high of a level and the growth of the game, like up close like that, was really amazing. And then to be a part of that and to be in it day in and day out was truly an honor. It was one of the best learning experiences that I've ever had as a coach. And to have that experience, later in your coaching career, I felt fortunate.
Of course, how were you able to use your international playing experience and your international coaching experience over with you to New Zealand?
I think it was more just the players knowing that I had been through something like they're going through. And they you can relate to some of their experiences, and they can relate to you in a different way. And so I think that was probably the biggest, most profound way that you know maybe I was able to connect with the players in a different way, even though it was a long time before. I think that they felt kind of an instant connection because of that. And I think it was neat for me to be able to talk with some of the players about that, and to help them through this grueling, difficult, process that has ups and downs and highs and lows, and it challenges you to your maximum capacity. And so I think them feeling like I had been through something like that was hopefully helpful for them.
What was that transition like going from coaching on the national team, then getting back into college coaching and becoming a head coach?
Yeah, I mean, it was, with every new job comes new challenges, and it for me, it takes a good year to feel like you have your feet on the ground. And that's no matter how much experience, I have or don't have. It takes me a good year to feel like, okay, to feel more confident in the job. And so it was, as any new job, challenging and exciting. And again, I felt fortunate to be able to continue to be a part of the game. That's, these college jobs are very competitive. And I think, the last couple of years, there's been a youth movement of coaches that have come into these positions, kind of like there was when I was 26. That needs, and it's important that this happens. So I felt fortunate that I was able to have such a great opportunity, kind of later in my career, because I know how competitive it is, to get these positions and to be offered these positions. And so yeah, I felt fortunate, and it's fun to be back in it and to work with the players again, and to rebuild the program.
Coming to Colby, what was that experience like becoming the head coach for them?
No, it's been wonderful. I mean, it's fun to try and to have the challenge of rebuilding a program. And it's hard, it's hard. And what you what I was reminded of is how hard coaching actually is. Like, there were days I'm like, gosh, coaching is hard. There's a challenge, but it's also great and incredibly rewarding in so many unique ways. But it's just about anything in life. It's about, working hard and trying to outwork people. It's about really being committed to the process and latching on to different successes that the team has and the program has, as you try and reach higher levels. So it's been exciting and challenging, and the team is amazing. It's an incredible group of young women that are truly, truly special people, and are really doing everything they can to represent Colby in the way that they feel it should be represented. So it's been a great experience, and I'm sure it will continue to be that way.
Of course, as a coach, what was that feeling like the first time you got to step back onto a college campus field and getting to represent Colby?
It was good. It was good because I had been out of the game a little bit. I'd been doing private sessions and things, but I was out of the college game, and out of coaching a team for about 5 years. And so it was neat. It was fun to be back on the field, the smell of the grass, and hearing the crowd and seeing the team and the excitement around the game. And it was such a great reminder too for me about how much I love the game, how much I love soccer. You go back to how much the game has afforded to you, and you want to try and turn that around and try and give that back to your players. And so it was an opportunity to do that. So it's fun to be back on the field again, and to be around the game and to, kind of go back to all those experiences that you had as a player and as a young coach.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you started to build for Colby women's soccer?
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, I walked into a team that had really good culture already. Their culture from a chemistry standpoint is spectacular, and I walked into that. It had nothing to do with me. It was all about what the team prioritized, and the team worked hard to build that. So I felt very fortunate about that. I mean, this team has some of the best chemistry of any team I've ever coached. What we're trying to build here is more of a competitive culture. And so that's like the second piece that we're trying to just continue to better. And I think that we can do that because they have such a great chemistry culture. So I was really lucky to walk into such a program that had that type of stability and a great foundation to be able to build a competitive culture upon.
Who are some of the teams that you face against each week in your conference?
I mean, the NESCAC is an incredible conference. It's arguably one of the top Division III conferences in the country. There's Amherst and Williams, and they have great traditions of success, several years of success in their programs. Middlebury and Hamilton have both been very successful. All the teams, there's great parity. We've got we've got Wesleyan, who made the Final Four a couple years ago, or actually not a couple years ago, I guess it was last year. And Trinity, Bates and Bowdoin, which are, kind of in our neck of the woods. And so there's, a total of 11 teams. So hopefully I didn't forget anybody. If I did, I don't mean to. 11 great teams that, represent incredible academic institutions. And it's a super competitive league, and there's great parity in the league too. So that's exciting to be a part of a league like that.
What is that home game atmosphere like when teams like Middlebury come to home and face you?
Well, we'll see this season. We haven't played Middlebury yet at home, but we're trying to grow our fan base a bit here. The fan base that we have is very loyal and very invested. And so we feel really lucky to have that. And we hope to continue to build the fan base here. Our goal right now is to try and make sure that our product is good and that our product is something exciting and something that people want to come watch. And so that's kind of where we're focused on now.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to go to Colgate?
Yeah, I mean, it's intense, just like anyone looking at Division I or Division II schools. The academic standards at Colby and other NESCAC schools are very, very high. And so that plays obviously a very important part in terms of, the recruiting process and the opportunities that we can offer, to students. Our process is a little bit later, which I kind of like we can get to know the students a little bit more. It's not as quick of a process. It's not as early of a process. And, sometimes there's disadvantages to that, but there are also great advantages. And part of that is getting to know the student better and having them make decisions when they feel like they have the wealth of information that they need to make a good decision. So, it's good. It's intense, recruiting, regardless of whatever division you're in, is the lifeblood of your program. It's absolutely vital to your program's success, to find the right people and then student and then player. And it's, pretty much 24/7, 365 days a year recruiting is. You're constantly always doing it. But what you hope is that leads your program into success, gets the right people there. And then, it's on you to try and develop them and create the right environment for them to succeed in.
For those prospective student athletes, what does the official visit look like at Colby?
Pretty much our official visits are players that, already committed to our process. So, they come in, they've already had a campus tour. They've already had a tour of our facilities. So really the official visits is more, for them to get to spend time with the team and get to know the players more than anything. And so that's pretty much what they're doing. They're staying with, players on the team. They're eating in the dining halls. They're going to events that might be held, whether it's one of our games or, another sporting event if we come in the off season. But it's really meant for them to get to know the players on the team better and also to get to know each other, actually. So for the class to get to know one another in person.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that Colby uniform for the first time versus your seniors putting it on for the last time?
Yeah, I mean, there's juxtaposition there. You kind of have this birth of a player, and then you have the graduation of a player, and so um, both are exciting, quite honestly, for different reasons. The seniors, you look at them and you see the blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into the program that they've invested. And I told them even this year, whenever I got tired or there were challenges, I would think of them and how badly I want this season to go well for them, to end on such a great note. And so you feel this responsibility to them, because this is it for them. This is their last experience in college soccer, and you want it to be, the best it can be, and you want to send them off with such a successful season. The freshmen, they're little babies coming in, and you have a different responsibility to them, to help them grow and to help them develop. And there's an excitement to that, to know that there's 4 years ahead of them. And so both are really exciting, um, and just very, very special, but for opposite reasons, really.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing your players go on and make it to the national team or even the NWSL?
Oh, it's the greatest experience. It really is neat to see a player that maybe you've coached or helped in some small way along the way be able to accomplish that dream that they've set out to do, because I can relate to that. I was, able to do the same with the national team. There wasn't professional soccer at the time, but I was able to do the same. So there's this really neat kind of full circle feeling when you see a player, put on a professional jersey or go play abroad, or continue in the game in whatever level or whatever way that is. Even coaching, there is a real neat, just joy and kind of pride in that.
How's that feeling like, obviously getting to see those players go into coaching like you have?
I it's probably the same for me as it's was for Anson, to see myself and other North Carolina players to go. I think it's a really neat experience, to have one of your players do it, because you feel like, gosh, maybe you had some small part in them wanting to get into the field of coaching. And so we're always looking for more females, more qualified females, more role models as females getting involved in coaching. We're still behind. It's still very male dominated at every level, but we're always hoping to get really great females in the game and to retain them. And again, it's still challenging. It's much better, and there's more females involved. But I think it's always going to be an endeavor to try and get more females to stay in the game. And so when you have a player do that, that's awesome. You feel like you're contributing to that cause, and it's an important cause. So it's fun to watch your players get involved in the game in whatever way that is.
What are some of your future plans at Colby moving forward?
Well, right now my plan is to take one day at a time, and we call it here, win the day. I'm trying to win the day every day. Put my best foot forward for this team and this program. And, it's a wonderful place to work. The coaching colleagues that I have here are amazing. Really enjoy getting to know them and learning from them about their successes and about Colby and how to be successful here. And so I'm on this learning curve, which is, coaching is amazing like that. Like, no matter how long you've been in it, there's so much more to learn. Like, there's so much more to learn. And, you know, so it definitely keeps you humble and keeps you knowing like, wow, you've got to, every day you're going to learn something new, no matter how long you've been in the game. So, you know, my goal is to try and win each and every day as best I can and to help this team have a great experience and to build this program to a successful level. So that's really my plan. I don't have any long-term plans here. Pretty much I'm looking day to day to say, all right, what do I have to do today to to you know do the best I can for this team and this program. So those days will accumulate, I'm sure.
What advice would you give those future college soccer players looking to get into playing in college soccer?
You know, the first thing I would say is, you know, if you want to accomplish anything in life, this is including soccer, but you have to really enjoy it. And I think now youth players, it's amazing. Like they have such great coaching. There's so many opportunities to play. You can play on multiple teams. The leagues are intense and competitive and demanding. And you know, I think sometimes players can get burned out a little bit because a lot of players are specializing in soccer very early, you know, maybe not playing multiple sports. Like back when we grew up, had two practices in a game every week in the season. It was a local game. We went to maybe 3 tournaments a year, you know, so most of our time was spent playing with the neighborhood boys at the rec center, you know, playing soccer and football and, you know, tag and basketball and all the sports. And so now it's, you know, the coaching is amazing. The opportunities are amazing. Like to have been a player back when I played, to think about the opportunities now in the coaching, I wouldn't even believe it. At the same time, you know, it can be very demanding and you know, the injuries are compounding now. There's more injuries in the game than there were back then. And so just trying to make sure that there's a good balance between enjoying the game and having fun, because at the end of the day, it is a game and it's supposed to be fun. And so enjoy the game, work hard, find the most competitive environment that you can. Many times for females, it's playing against boys. To me, that was always something I enjoyed and something that I felt developed me as a player. And playing pickup soccer, you know, it doesn't have to be an organized environment by a coach for you to take part in. Like you can take your own ownership to your development to, you know, go play pickup with, you know, a group of women or girls or guys or neighborhood boys or whatever. Join indoor leagues, you know, have investment in your own development by playing pickup, because the game is the best teacher. And so you just want to play the game and enjoy it and compete, and the chips will fall where they may. It is very competitive to get in college soccer. Even though there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of teams, there are a lot of players. And so it's important that you measure your success, I think, in terms of becoming your best self and the best player that you personally can be. And if you do that, then you're succeeding. And again, the chips will fall where they may if you play college soccer or not, and what level you play at. It's more about you becoming your best self.
What advice would you give those college soccer players out there looking to play professional soccer, whether it's the NWSL or the U.S. Women's National?
I would give them that same advice. You know, it's, you know, the top of the pyramid is very small. So the base of the pyramid, there's millions of soccer players that many of which have the same dreams you have. And the top of that pyramid is very, very tiny. And to play for the national team, there's only, you know, around 20 that actually in the whole country are afforded that opportunity. So again, I would go back to enjoyment of the game, becoming your best self, finding the most competitive environments that you can to grow in and to better yourself in, and just enjoy the game. It's meant to be enjoyed. And I think nowadays, you know, I think players put a lot of pressure on themselves. There's a lot of outside pressures that it can become more like a job, and it shouldn't feel like a job. It should feel like a sport that you love to play and a great escape in your life, and something that you love to do outside of some of the other responsibilities that you have, you know, like school and things like that that can, you know, put a lot of pressure on people, and can be difficult at times. So I think it's about keeping soccer in the right perspective and what it's meant to be, even though there are so many opportunities and there's ambition, and that's all very important. I think you want to keep perspective that it is a game, you know, and it's important that it remains a game even at the level that you want to reach. If you're playing at a high level, like the national team players still have to enjoy the game. They're no different than youth players in terms of that aspect of it. They still need to enjoy the game to put their efforts and the training in that they need to. And that's a constant no matter what level you play at.
What advice would you give those college soccer players out there and even former professional soccer players looking to get into college coaching?
I think just jump into the deep end, get your coaching licenses, US Soccer and USC, the United Soccer Coaches Association, offer coaching schools. I would, jump into those because they're great learning experiences. You'll network and meet a lot of people in coaching. Who knows what that can bring you? We met a coach at coaching school that ended up coaching and really inspiring us to recruit one of our captains at Clemson. And we met him at coaching school, and this player was an incredible human being. Was one of our captains at Clemson. Was my nanny when I was with US Soccer. She helped take care of my daughter when I was with the national team. So you don't know, what connections you can make that and what that might bring you. And so coaching schools are important from an education standpoint, your growth as a coach, but also this networking base that who knows where that can connect you. And then just to get involved, coaching, college camps or, getting involved with your community and coaching. Like coaching is a job that is best done by jumping into it and doing it. You learn by doing. And so get involved in it.
What advice would you give those people like looking to coach on the national team?
Again, similar to playing, you've got to find the most competitive environment that you can to coach in that will really push you and challenge you, which sometimes is hard. You've got to maybe sometimes make sacrifices. Some people, are volunteers in college programs because they're very competitive jobs to get. And that's how they work their way in the game. There's still sacrifices that have to be made to also climb that coaching ladder, just like a ladder as a player. So, it's getting around the best coaches that you can find, jumping into coaching education, learning from the great coaches in the area around you. Obviously now with the internet, you can watch all these coaching sessions, watch the Premier League, watch the NWSL. Like now soccer's on TV, really often. So watch those games and learn about the game in that way, watching it being played at a high level.
What advice would you give those future head coaches looking to get coaching starting on the college soccer as a head coach?
Really the same. I mean, they have to break into the college game in some way. It might be as a volunteer coach, with a program to begin with. And then, maybe positions open up at that point. If that's something that I think coaches need to consider, if there isn't a position open that is a salaried or paid position, being willing to kind of be involved in that way to get that experience. Because really in college coaching, the coaching part of it is important, but there's the whole program piece of it, scheduling, compliance, alumni networking, a lot of administrative side, travel logistics. There's a lot more to it than just being on the field coaching. Obviously, recruiting is massive. And so trying to find a way to get that experience through being involved with a college program can help you maybe break into the game because it's very competitive.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Colby Women's Soccer Program at?
I'm sorry?
Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with Colby Women's Soccer?
I'm not a huge social media person. I know we're on Instagram. I think we have Facebook pages as well. There's links connected with our website, so you can just go to the Colby Women's Soccer homepage and find resources there and ways to get involved. and learned about the program through social media there.
Thank you again, Coach Tracey, for your interview, and best of luck in your future as the head women's soccer coach at Colby.
Thank you very much.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Tracey, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you so much.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.